All right. Well, one of the things that I think we probably all experience is that to some level our identities change over time. I remember when I was in high school, I had a class and I sat next to this kid named Adam, and I had it like spring semester of one year and then fall semester of the next school year. And the first year that I had the class, Adam was, I think it was probably before people actually used the word goth, but he was like all dressed in black, you know, the chains and everything, and like he was really nice, but like his identity was totally goth. Came back to school in the fall, and I remember I walked into the class for the first time, and I was like, I thought like there was some sort of school costume contest that I was unaware of, because Adam was now dressed with a big belt buckle, blue jeans, plaid shirt, super country guy. And I was like, do you have a twin? Is your twin into country? And it was so weird. Now he was pretty much the same person, but certainly in how he was presenting himself to the world couldn't have been more different. And it was literally in the span of 2.5, 3 months that like totally changed who he was to everybody. And that happens. It doesn't necessarily always happen that quickly. It's not just like Superman where he like goes into a phone booth and like, oh wait, he took off his glasses and now he's Superman. But our kids' identities are going to change. At our table, a number of people mentioned how it wasn't until something kind of got taken away, whether you were an athlete and you have a catastrophic injury. I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she was a runner, and she's like, I've had 3 surgeries on my knee in the last 6 months, and I might never run again. And like, she's trying to process, even as an adult, that's something I've put my identity in. I can't do it anymore. Our identities are going to change over time. It happens, different experiences, things that we thought were true about ourselves, maybe we estimated those things, or maybe just something happens and totally changes our picture of the world. And so part of helping our kids navigate life is navigating when they change their values, or they change their interests, or they change the way that they see themselves, like helping them navigate these things, because it does happen. But one of the things that we got to make sure that we don't do is that we emphasize their identity by their behavior, because I think what happens is we tend to emphasize what our kids do over who they are, and their identity essentially becomes in how they achieve things. How well can I, how good of an athlete can I be? How good can I be in school? What relationships do I have? Do I have relationships with popular people? Do I feel like an outcast? A lot of how we define people is by their performance. And so, a kid can be made to feel stupid because they get a bad grade in a class, and kids can be merciless, and it's like, you're an idiot. Well, that's making an identity statement based on one test. But we can do that. We can totally feed into that as parents too. And so what happens is that we end up creating our kids to be beers. This isn't a great phrasing, but it's just be a good athlete, be a good student, just be nice. And you think about how Jesus interacted with people. He pointed out when they were just doing things, but on the inside it's not who they actually were. His conversations with the Pharisees, you look really religious, but on the inside you're not. And we can kind of do the same thing with our kids. It's like we overemphasize the things that they do, and we push them to have their identity in just doing these things, even if it's not who you really are. But Jesus was calling people to be followers, to be wait, I totally messed that up. We create people who are doers. Sorry. Jesus wants us to be beers. I got these things, again, rough morning. Great. We want to be talking to our kids about who they are, not what they do. And so this has been really challenging, just in terms of, as I've been preparing this, thinking about how often am I talking to my kids and telling them about what I'm proud of them about. Somebody shared at the table last week when we did the homework and you were asking their kid what you were proud of, and their response was that I went number 2 in the potty, which was fantastic, because that was okay. Yeah, which is, you should totally be proud of that. Like, we're trying to get that diaper money back. I totally get that. Right, but I think even as they grow older, it can be so much more about, like, you got your grade card. Oh, you did so well. But how often are we taking time to emphasize and praise people for our kids for who they are? Even in our relationships with other adults, we probably don't do that well. It's like somebody at work and you pat them on the back like, hey, great job on that thing. We rarely are actually affirming people for who they are. I don't know if you want to share just a little bit about that idea of how to affirm people, like about who they are.
About who they are?
Yeah.
From the transformational leadership. Yeah. So in this leadership thing that we took, and now some of the people on our staff are taking, they tell you when you affirm someone, you shouldn't be like, I just want to tell you that this. That's not how you should be affirming people. Instead, it's really looking at I really see your heart for being a mom and how much you want to be a good mom and care for your kids and be patient, and I see how hard you're trying. Versus like, oh man, like it's really good that you send your kids to preschool and you want them to have like the best education. I mean, both things are good, but kind of switching from maybe.
Yeah, and just even thinking about talking to your kid about, you know, I'm proud that you are blank. Not again, I'm proud that you achieved blank, but I'm proud that you are blank. And even thinking about how we interject identity in Christ and how we do that. I always come back to our youth group verse is Ephesians 2:10. I don't know if somebody wants to read that. It's our youth group verse because I think it's really valuable to teenagers who are trying to figure out who they are.
For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do.
Thanks. There's so much about who we are in that that's amazing. Like we are God's. It depends how it's translated a lot of different ways. Handiwork, workmanship. I really like masterpiece. Regardless of how you translate it, the idea that, so you are unique and created exactly the way God wanted you to be. He also made you new in Christ. And he also, even before you were born, he planned out things for you. You were God's child. Like, again, we start talking about to our kids, thinking about how do we build into an identity of Christ. We have to internalize that ourselves, but we also have to make sure that we're speaking truth to our kids and speaking in a way that's actually affirming their identity. Again, a received identity, not an achieved identity. And that's hard. It's awkward. One of the things we, do in this class is, if you think about in your interactions with people, some people are really awesome and fantastic at just affirming people naturally, in an identity kind of way. But most of us aren't. It's kind of super awkward to look somebody in the eye and just say, you are blank, and to really see somebody's value and speak their value and speak the truth of who they are in Jesus to them. It can be awkward. There's one of my favorite authors is a guy named Bob Goff. I don't know if anybody is familiar with him. He's kind of like your crazy uncle, but one of his things is he he the things he does, I can't imagine ever doing. But he carries medals with him, like like first place medal or whatever. But he'll run into somebody like his Uber driver, and he'll hand this person a medal, and it's not like, hey, good job on driving me around. In his conversation with the person, he will identify something about that person, and he's like, I just want to let you know, like, that I love that you're entrepreneurial or whatever. And he's like speaking something about who they are as a person. And I think that's just such a revolutionary way to go about our relationships. But it's kind of unnatural because we've kind of been built into recognizing achievement over identity. And in the process, we've created an identity that's based on achievement. So I want you to think of, or discuss at your tables, like, what makes that challenging? What makes it hard to affirm somebody's identity or their who they are as a person over accomplishments? And then maybe thinking about, in terms of how you're interacting with your kids, what might be some things that would have to be different for you to more effectively be talking about their identity in Jesus?